All right, welcome. So today we're jumping into what has to be one of the greatest ironies in all of modern history. We're going to talk about how a tool that was literally designed for nuclear war, somehow, against all odds, ended up connecting the entire world.
So to really get what's going on here, we have to start with this one core idea. Think of it like this. Humanity has these two massive engines. You've got the engine of structure. We're going to call that the shell. This is the logical part, the part that's always asking, how do we do this? Then you have the engine of intuition. Let's call that the heart. This is the engine that asks, but why? And for basically all of human history, these two engines have been running on completely separate tracks. Today's story is all about what happened when those tracks, well, they suddenly and totally unexpectedly collided.
I mean, just think about that question for a second. How on earth did a network built to survive a nuclear holocaust become, well, this? The place we all connect. That's really the mystery we're unpacking today. We're going to see how these two polar opposite worlds, one all about peace and love, the other about the absolute terror of war, somehow accidentally ended up building our future together, all because they were trying to solve two completely different problems.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Our story really kicks off in the 1960s, a time of just massive cultural change. A whole generation was basically looking at the world their parents had built, this very rigid, materialistic world of the shell, and they were saying, nope, not for us. They were shouting for a totally new way to live, a whole new set of values. This was the heart, our engine of why, finally finding its voice, and it was loud.
And here's the crucial part. The whole counterculture thing wasn't just about protesting against the establishment. It was about what they were for. They were actually trying to design a new world. And what did that world look like? Well, it was all about these things: decentralized communities, open access to information, personal empowerment. What they were really doing was drawing up a social blueprint for a world that was way more connected and a whole lot less top-down.
And if you want to see that dream in action, look no further than Woodstock. Seriously, for one wild weekend, a city of almost 500,000 people just popped up out of nowhere in a field. It was this huge, living, breathing proof that a society built on cooperation and a shared vision, well, it wasn't just some hippie fantasy. It can actually, work.
Okay, now hold that thought, because at the exact same time this is all happening, we need to jump into a completely different universe. Over in the world of the shell, the military-industrial complex was dealing with its own massive existential problem. They were obsessed, absolutely obsessed with one single terrifying question that came straight out of the Cold War.
And their problem? It wasn't about peace or love. It was purely technical, purely logical. It was this: how do you build a communications network for your military that can survive a nuclear war, like a decapitation strike? The answer they came up with was to build a system that had no single point of failure, a decentralized web where a message could always find a way through, no matter what part got blown up. The whole goal was just pure, cold, hard resilience.
This just perfectly captures the total split-screen reality of 1969. It's wild. In August, you have the Heart putting on this massive festival of community at Woodstock. Then, just 2 months later, in October, the Shell sends its very first message over this brand new network, ARPANET. You've got these two worlds, these two histories unfolding at the exact same time, completely oblivious to one another.
And this, right here, is where the story gets really, really interesting. Because in trying to solve their own totally separate problems, these two polar opposite forces, one side dreaming of a perfect world, the other side literally planning for the end of the world, they accidentally created the blueprint for everything that was to come.
Okay, look at this. This is the absolute core of the whole story. On the left, you have the Heart's vision, a non-hierarchical community, free flow of information, decentralized power. And on the right, the Shell's design for ARPANET, a non-hierarchical network, resilient data packets, no central control hub. Do you see it? It's the exact same structure, the same architecture, but born from two completely opposite goals. It's incredible.
So, this wasn't just some abstract idea. This synthesis actually came to life in a new kind of person, the long-haired engineer. These were the folks who had the technical chops of the shell, but the values of the heart. They were the ones who could look at the establishment's big, scary computers and see a tool for liberation. They were the human bridge, the translators between these two worlds.
And they had a kind of philosophical Bible, too. It was called the Whole Earth Catalog, and its big slogan was access to tools. Now think about that. At a time when most of the counterculture saw computers as these evil tools of control, the catalog did something revolutionary. It said, no, these are tools for us. Tools for empowerment, for building communities. For the first time, the machine wasn't the enemy. It was maybe, just maybe, part of the solution.
So what happens next? What happens when you let these long-haired engineers loose on the military's brand new network? Well, the machine, this cold, logical, calculating thing, it starts to wake up. It starts to stir with a purpose that nobody, especially not the people who built it, ever saw coming.
I mean, the official plan from the shell was super logical and straightforward. ARPANET was supposed to be for serious work, right? Letting researchers at different universities share computing power, which was super expensive and rare back then. That was the official how of the network.
But that is not at all what the people using it cared about. By 1973, only a few years after it switched on, this one single number tells you everything you need to know about what the network was actually for.
75%. Think about that. 3/4 of everything happening on this super advanced, military-funded research network was just people talking to each other. Email, the fundamental ancient human need to connect, the call of the heart, it just completely took over the machine. Turns out, that was a way more powerful force than sharing computer time. The network had finally found its why.
And that right there, that's the great, profound irony that sits at the very core of our digital world. The Pentagon, in trying to win the Cold War, accidentally built the perfect tool for the counterculture's biggest utopian dreams. The shell, trying to build a weapon, ended up creating the perfect platform for the heart. And that, right there, is the origin story of the internet.
So the shell of knowledge, it just kept growing stronger, its logic more and more complex. And the heart of humanity, it kept beating louder, its wisdom feeling more urgent than ever. But that bridge between them, it still wasn't really built. The archive was missing its why, and the dream was still missing its how. The two kin had finally met, but they were still strangers, really, continuing on their separate paths, not yet knowing they were actually part of the same whole.